What's going on? Welcome to the Beneficial Blerd channel. I am your Beneficial Blerd Jam. I recently found out about or saw this video from Healthy Gamer GG, or he has another name, like I think Dr. K. Hold on, let me actually go to his thing. So yes, this is the channel, Healthy Gamer GG, and yes, Dr. K. So says content coaching community from Dr. K's brain into yours. So I've seen some of his videos and stuff before. I'm sure you've seen him before too, somewhere on the internet. There's a video that he recently did a response to from a comedian. And the title of the video is Why We Shouldn't Leave Incels Behind. And I figured, okay, this is interesting. This sounds like something I should check out. Because I'm curious and I'm interested about men's health and us in our community just trying to get better. So I'm going to watch this, share some thoughts, and, give my commentary reactions to it.
So I'm not the hugest fan of what you would call react content, but I watched a piece from Eliza Schlesinger's new comedy special, and I thought we could take a look together because I have some thoughts.
There is an anger toward women in our world, in our country. You can see it with the current legislation that's being written. However, I wrote this joke before all this happened. Lucky for me, hating women is evergreen, and so these jokes still work.
It's a funny joke, and it's actually sad. Like that in itself is problematic, right? Like you can certain jokes and certain topics shouldn't be timeless, but as of right now, they are. So the fact that she could write this before, and I'm assuming she's talking about legislation in the United States, but the fact that she could write a joke, plan it, and have it for a comedy show before any actual legislation happened, and it still be relevant, that sucks. That means there's definitely a big problem that we need to address.
But there is an anger toward women when they don't give attention, a sexual experience, love, admiration, a conversation to an absolute stranger, and there can be deadly consequences for it. And that's not her fault, but this is what happens. Now is the portion where I bring it down in order to bring it back up, but here we go. That kid that shot up the University of Santa Barbara a couple years ago, I know, it is hard to keep them straight, America, but this one was different.
It is happening a lot,
because this kid
right?
wrote a whole manifesto.
Yeah, it is happening. It is happening a lot. And it's oh God, it is a problem. I feel like I'm not going to like what he has to say, but let's see. I'm just giving it space and time. Let's see. I'm going to go back a little bit. All right. But she's right. It's since I'll speak for myself as a millennial, I guess. Since Columbine, to the best of my knowledge, school unalivings and this kind of behavior has steadily just kept going. Not to say that people didn't do strange or crazy stuff before the 2000s, before 1999, before whatever, but it's especially in these some considered safe spaces of universities, schools, from elementary schools to high schools to colleges, just back to back. I remember my first semester or second semester in college is when the Virginia Tech active unaliving, pew-pewing happened. And it just keeps going. I think it happened multiple times during my time in undergrad, which was from 2006 to 2010. And since then, it just keeps going. And yeah, it's a big problem that needs to be looked into and needs to be stopped, right? And it's something that we shouldn't take lightly.
Where I bring it down in order to bring it back up, but here we go. That kid that shot up the University of Santa Barbara a couple years ago, I know, it is hard to keep them straight, America, but this one was different.
It is happening a lot,
because this kid
right?
wrote a whole manifesto about how women don't pay attention to him and don't sleep with him, and this is what they deserve. That guy that shot up that Asian strip mall in Atlanta, he had a whole interview about how women don't sleep with him, and he's alone, and this is what they deserve. So now, this next part, I'm going to be as clear as possible because this is a Netflix special, so what I say next will be translated into hundreds of languages, and I want to be succinct, and I want to be loud, and I want to be clear. So here we go.
Let's go.
Gentlemen, if you are not having sex, and we're not talking a dry spell, we're not talking you're a little shy, we're not talking your Aunt Sheila did a number on me, I gotta take a knee, we're not talking you swiped right, she had a tail, you didn't know it till the awesome blossom came.
What?
We are talking if you don't have sex, and the narrative of your life is that you are not having sex because women are bitches, women are whores, you're a nice guy, and you deserve better. That is nature's way of saying you should not be having sex, for you failed to adapt and evolve, and there should be no more of your kind.
Cheers, right?
That's heavy. But all right, let's see. I mean, hey, all right, let's see what she can. Whoa, let's go.
If you can't figure it out.
I mean, I think I think that's a. I don't think that's a bad. Okay, that wasn't a joke. That part wasn't a joke. That was her actually communicating, saying something that she really feels and believes. I got that. I understand that. I think that is a reality that a lot of us, particularly as men, don't realize is the actual reality. Like, some people don't have kids. Some people don't have sex. Some people don't engage in a lot of other things that is deemed important or a goal to have. Like, life is definitely way more than romantic relationships, is way more than, I think sex is an okay word to say on YouTube, but it's way more than that, right? But I do think in the culture and the matrix that we live in, particularly as men, we have been fed and given a belief that all of that is necessary for us to be normal, for us to be good, for us to be like healthy human beings. And I think that's a belief that we need to question, challenge, and really get rid of, because I think it sets up people to become, particularly men, sets up men, young boys, to become incels and become like one of the problem examples that she's talking about.
And I understand women cheer for that. Most men do. Some men are reserved. I get it. I'm a girl. I'm not one of you. And you don't know. You're like, I don't want to cheer for that. That means I'm leaving behind. It's bros before hoes. I'm leaving behind my guys. I can't do that. Yes, leave them. Leave the diseased portion of your herd that is broken. They're giving you a bad name. We believe you are good. Come with us for snacks and sex and good-looking babies.
For snacks. Snacks.
And gentlemen, if it still makes you uncomfortable, I totally get it. It might make you more comfortable to know that I stole that entire idea from a man named Charles Darwin. You can Wikipedia it, okay?
Okay.
That's
So
funny.
this I thought was hilarious because I said something pretty similar recently, why the dating crisis is just natural selection. But I have a couple of thoughts about this that I want to share. I said, hey, look, the dating crisis is maybe natural selection. Eliza Schlesinger says the same thing. Hilarious, okay? And please don't hate on her. I think she's a comedian. I think she's just speaking what she understands. But I think there are a couple of...
I think it's more than just understands. I'm gonna stop him right there. I think it's more than just understands. I think it's also what she has experienced, and it's when we're talking about this subject, when it comes to not only the dating pool, not only romantic relationships, but the interaction and relationships between men and women. We can't just intellectualize people's experiences, particularly women's experiences, who are the greater victims and who receive like the negativity, the most negative aspect of this situation, right? Because again, like she just mentioned, the manifestos that a lot of these guys, these incel men, share before they do mass unalivings and do horrible things stems from a place of entitlement, a place of hate and harm towards the opposite sex. And that's something you can't just like, oh, well, to her, like what she understands. It's no, what she's experiencing. Like, women are experiencing more than just understanding, because I feel like intellectualizing it that way is trying to make light of it. But no, what she's experiencing, what women are experiencing is very real, and it makes sense why they come to the conclusions that they do about men, about these particular type of men, but generally all men.
And please don't hate on her. I think she's a comedian. I think she's just speaking what she understands. But I think there are a couple of fundamental problems here.
Also, she's just a comedian. I don't, okay.
On her, I think she's a comedian. I think she's just speaking.
Okay. He says, I think she's a comedian. So I don't want to put words in his mouth, but yeah, I mean, so what if she's a comedian? She's also a woman, and she also has her perspective. And I get it. Again, in certain circumstances and situations, we like to elevate people's status or their professions above others. He's a psychologist, right? He's a psychiatrist. He's a doctor. She's a comedian. In this situation, for some people, like, well, because he is this profession, his perspective is more valuable or more important and something that we should listen to more than the comedian. That's messed up. And I don't think that's always healthy to do. Like, there are certain situations that, yes, I'm going to listen to this trained professional about something. I feel like there's more nuance when it comes to actual social and human relations and experiences. Like, this is a topic that's this whole thing about incels, about the relationship between men and women, misogyny, patriarchy, all these things is more complex, more nuanced, and more, it requires a little bit more than just, we only listen to doctors. I think we got to listen to everybody if we're actually trying to fix things, if we're actually trying to help things, if we're actually trying to heal from things. And as men, I think we need to open up ourselves to listen to more than just quote unquote doctors, you know, or a certain type of people or a certain profession, right? Like, we need to hear as much as we can to actually get better and deal with the beliefs and the thoughts that impact our actions that keep us from being beneficial.
Hilarious. Okay. And please don't hate on her. I think she's a comedian. I think she's just speaking what she understands. But I think there are a couple of fundamental problems here that we have to talk about. So she's advocating, and I don't know how true this is. I don't know how much of this is a joke, but I think there are a lot of people out there who have this attitude of screw incels, just fuck them. If people don't know how to date, it's adapt or die. You guys don't know, like, even the bros, like, don't help them out, right? Just leave them behind. And that's something that I kind of take issue with. And I'm sure that, you know, one of the problems with a comedy special is that she may have a more nuanced perspective. She may have a more nuanced take. This is a 2.5-minute clip from a special, which she has to, by virtue of the nature of it, I'm sure it's more complicated than that in her mind. So let's give her the benefit of the doubt. But I think that the reason that this joke is so important is because she says it and everyone starts clapping, right? And then she advocates for leaving these people behind.
I think we need to question, why are they clapping? Why are they cheering? There's a reason for that. I'm gonna let them keep going a little bit.
And that's kind of what I have an issue with. So we as human beings have natural selection all around us, right? So people are born with cystic fibrosis, which is literally nature's way of saying, hey, like, this is a gene that needs to be removed from the gene pool. It's not really compatible with life, but we don't leave those people behind. And then you can say, like, okay, but that's different from, like, incel types, right? Because cystic fibrosis is something that you're born with. It's not your fault. It's not your choice. But then I also had a patient who was, at the age of 21, got really drunk at a frat party, jumped off of a 3rd-floor balcony, broke his back, and was quadriplegic for the rest of his life. That also is natural selection acting, right? So this person made a choice. They made a choice to drink too much alcohol, number one. They made a choice to jump off of a 3-story balcony. This was a choice that they made. That's the difference. Incels, they choose to be this way. These are their choices. But when it comes to that person, we don't let that person die, which, by the way, I think is the right thing to do. And then there are other versions of this as well. If we look at other people with addiction, so people who share needles and get HIV, that's a choice that they make. Should we let them die? Or people who are in abusive relationships and end up deciding, making the choice to date someone who is physically abusive to them. And if their life is threatened, they're making choices, right? These are their choices. Should we let them die? Should we leave them behind?
I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. The first example with the drinking and making dumb decisions, got you. Choice about drugs, and then choice about abusive relationships. I don't know. This is, I don't like this, because like he said, this is more nuanced. And trying to compare abusive relationships, somebody is a victim of abusive relationships, somebody that's a victim of addiction. And even if you want to get to the case with the drinking, the alcohol, alcoholism is an addiction too. That stuff messes with your mind. That messes with your beliefs. That messes with your whole system. You know, even during the pandemic, they couldn't shut down liquor stores because people would have withdrawal. Like that creates a whole, like, bad health system for people. You can't make the same comparison with somebody that's an incel because they have bad dating experiences. But I think it's even deeper than that, right? I'm going to see if he touches on it. If he doesn't, I'm just going to bring it up.
Absolutely not. And this, I think, is the crux of the problem.
And yeah, you can't, if somebody is addicted to something, like if somebody's addicted to something, if somebody is in a place where they are, again, somebody that's in an abusive relationship, literally there's something going on with them. Yeah, you care for them. Somebody that's addicted to drugs, somebody that's struggling with alcohol. Yes, you do. You have to care for them because there's something deep in there that goes beyond just a choice, right? It's something that goes beyond just a choice. And then, of course, he gave the example of somebody has a disease or something like that. Yeah, no, like they didn't really have a choice in that. Like it just happened. We can't. I don't think we can compare any of this to somebody who's considered an incel or chooses to be called an incel. Nah.
Physically abusive to them, and if their life is threatened, they're making choices, right? These are their choices. Should we let them die? Should we leave them behind? Absolutely not. And this, I think, is the crux of the problem with like incels that we see today, which is that there is one group of people who does not deserve help from the rest of humanity. That's the problem, right? When it comes to everyone else, if you make a dumb choice to date the wrong person and you get physically abused, we're on your side. We should step up as a society to help domestic violence victims. I completely agree. If you're a drug addict, this is something that we used to be moralistic about, but now we understand that there is a developmental history to addiction. There are genetic predispositions to addiction. There are all kinds of choices that people make, but there are also circumstances and risk factors and histories of trauma that predispose people to addiction. So those people deserve our help too. What about the incels? So this is where my experience as a psychiatrist, I think that a lot of incels have a modern version of body dysmorphia. So if you look at a lot of incels, they'll be hyper-focused on certain physical features. Like they'll say, my jawline is like this, therefore I can't get laid. I'm too short, therefore I can't get laid. They have a history of oftentimes traumatic experiences. They struggle with all kinds of pornography problems and other kinds of addictive problems. I think the developmental histories of incels show that they don't have easy lives.
Okay, wait. All right, so this is what I mean. Going back to making the comparison of the lady from before, right? She's a comedian, he's a doctor. He's a psychiatrist, he's a doctor, whatever. There's a fun to me as a non-profession of any of that. I'm not a comedian, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just a guy on the internet who is doing my best to read, study, and learn. There's a fundamental thing that is missing here that she clearly states in her joke, right? She references incels, men who commit violent acts because of their hatred towards women. Misogyny is running all through that. They are frustrated and upset because of the entitlement that patriarchy sold to them. These are deeply rooted beliefs that they have. They have certain beliefs about women, they have certain beliefs about the society, and they have certain beliefs about themselves. And sure, he's touching on it about, maybe I'm just not attractive, or I'm short, or whatever. And yeah, sure, there's traumatic things that happen in our lives, right? The way that we're raised and so on and so forth. But I really feel like he is, to me, what it looks like, he's really skipping over the reality. The really, really toxic part of all of this is the misogyny. He's stepping huge steps over misogyny, over patriarchy, over all of these other violent and terrible beliefs that exist in our society as a whole. In most men, I believe all men are misogynistic. That's what I've learned from talking with women and learning and being open and seeing it and questioning for myself, right? Like we all wrestle with it. We're all born with it. We were born into a misogynistic, patriarchal, abusive world. And so that stuff is ingrained in us. We're like fish swimming in it. We don't even realize that we're wet. It's that bad. But if we're not going to admit that is really the heart behind what's happening, it has nothing to do, not completely about how attractive you are or like you have poor social skills. Like those things can be worked on, right? The ugliest dude, if he has the right confidence and he knows how to treat a woman, can get into a relationship. This is actual fact. Some of us we know people like this, that they have a beautiful wife and you were like, oh snap, how'd that happen? Like it's like that. It's for real, but we gotta admit that the real crux of this is misogynistic and patriarchal beliefs that make these incels, make men like this violent, and makes them people that we should leave behind. The adapting isn't necessarily not only the lack of emotional intelligence and all those other things. Sure, we need to adapt to that. People need to adapt to that in general if they want to keep a job, more or less a romantic relationship. But more deeper than that, more specific, the real crux of it is like, no, we have, and we've been taught, and we're encouraged to sustain really, really bad beliefs, really, really toxic beliefs that are often associated with being an incel, which again is misogyny and the entitlement that comes with patriarchy that a lot of these people can't let go, that we can't let go of. That's the real issue. And I think if he's missing that, if anybody's watching this or whatever, missing that, like, then we're going to have a harder time actually trying to fix, actually trying to heal, actually try to grow. And no, we don't want to leave people behind, but if they can't let go and get rid of those beliefs, yeah, they need to be left behind, because all it's going to do is continue to carry on violence and harm to the community that we're trying to sustain and grow.
Problems and other kinds of addictive problems. I think the developmental histories of incels show that they don't have easy lives. But this is the one group of people that we kind of say, fuck them. If y'all want to dive deep into the...
I'm going to skip his ad. Well, yeah, we say F them because, again, it goes back to the beliefs. They have some beliefs that are harmful, and there's repeated patterns behind that. There's been multiple incidents with people who are considered incels, who claim to be incels, who have these manifestos that go out and do violent behavior. It's disgusting. It's not good. Like, we can't be okay with that and be like, oh, we need to coddle them, or no, like, need to be very clear. Like, no, you thinking trash, man. Like, sure, you might, like, no, because you can have people who are attractive and have money and stuff like that and still be misogynistic, who can still feed into patriarchy and still hate women, who want to cause harm and violence towards women. Like, what? Like, the deeper issue is that we can't just skip over that.
And so even if you say, like, if you rebel against that, right? And that's what really, like, kind of got me interested in this video, was just the way that we as a society are saying, this is a group of people that we will cheer leaving behind. Even the men, don't help them, let them die out.
Again, we got to question, why are they cheering? Because they're cheering because they are harmful to the rest of the community. Like, that's it. Nobody's going to cheer if there's no real reason to cheer. It's not because, oh, they're just awkward, they're just nerds, they're blerds, they're geeks, so, you know, they're dorks. No, there's actual damage and harm that comes along with this. Let's be honest about that. Like, we can't overlook that.
This is a group of people that we will cheer leaving behind. Even the men, don't help them, let them die out. So these people are special in this way. And I think that's actually what makes an incel, is that these are people, when I work with these people, the one common thread amongst all these people is they are the people who reach out for help, and society says you don't deserve it by virtue of the way that you speak, by virtue of the way that you act. And I'm not in any...
Yeah, see, look, I disagree. It is the virtue of what you believe. That's really what it is. And I mean, I get it. I'm sure there's nuance there too, but the real what I've seen in society, the reason that people don't like this term, they don't like people who identify as such, is because of the beliefs that lead to violence and harm towards women. That's the troubling part that's brewing underneath of that. You can have trouble speaking, you can have trouble with the way you dress, so on and so forth. All those things can be addressed. But if your beliefs, if your thoughts are still grimy, like underneath it all, nah, yo, like, that's the problem.
Way advocating, if you shoot up a school, I think you should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law and pay for your crime. I don't think that that is a good idea. I'm not advocating for that behavior. But the other thing that really worries me about this is, even if you say, okay, these people are screwed, we don't like them, even if you accept that these people are fundamentally different and they don't deserve help, we should just let them die. My question is, when do they lose the capacity for help? At what point? If you're
to answer that question is when they refuse to identify and really challenge those beliefs, and they want to hold on to them. That makes sense to me, right? I don't know. I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm gonna change up my view here. I mean, that makes sense to me. Like, if you want to continue to sink in a ship, if you want to continue to be violent, if you want to continue to hold on to things that clearly people are saying, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and you want to continue to hold on to that, yeah, you separate yourself. Even in a biblical sense, right? For those who are Christians. When, I think it's Matthew 8 or Matthew 18, but it talks about if you have an ought or an issue with a brother or sister or whatever, you have an issue with somebody in the church. There's a process to how you're supposed to deal with it. You're supposed to go to the brother and say, hey, you offended me or you sinned against me. Can we work this out? If they don't hear you, you move up. You take somebody else with you to talk about it, and so on and so forth. And then eventually you get to the place and you excommunicate them, right? That was the whole idea. But eventually through that process, hopefully they can understand and see the error of their ways and be like, okay, I actually want this relationship. I want things to change. I want things to get better. And so I'm going to work on changing. That's what people, can repent and do all that stuff. But if somebody is continuing to hold on to something that is constantly harming somebody and not willing to change or budge, yeah, you got to cut them off. You got to move away. And I think, sure, we can have sympathy and empathy for people. I get that. Got it. But at what expense, right? Not at the expense of, particularly within the Black community, not at the expense of our sisters being unalived once every 4 to 5 hours. No, like a big heart and crux behind that is misogyny, patriarchy, and the hate and the disdain that we as men are taught to have towards women. And so, yeah, like that's a problem. These are bad, really bad beliefs that if you want to continue to hold on to them, as a woman, I can understand why you cheer and you don't want that to be a part or near your community. And as men, we can understand like, oh no, you're an op. You're an op, and you shouldn't be around the women in our community. You shouldn't be in our community in the first place. We can't have you here. You're messing up all the things. You're messing up all the things by causing harm to everyone. And it doesn't even have to be about possession. I know some guys like to flex about that, right? It's like, well, I protect women in my house. I protect my wife. I protect my mom or my daughter or whatever. Like it's close proximity, right? No, one, we got to get rid of that and understand that we are interdependent in a community. We got to expand our mind to be able to embrace that. And so if we see something that is toxic and bad for the community at whole, we need to get rid of it. It's no different than like an example that came to mind is like if there is bad water in our community, we got to get rid of the bad water and replace it with something good. You can't just allow everybody just to be drinking bad water. Man or woman, child, don't matter. Like this is the problem. We got to fix it. We got to get rid of this. But we live in a culture and a society that likes to pick and choose and doesn't really want to actually deal with specific stuff. And I'm trying to work through that too. Like constantly identifying what are these issues that need to be uprooted and dealt with. And it starts with these beliefs. What are these bad beliefs that I have? What are these bad beliefs that you have that are causing issues? You got to cut that stuff off and get rid of it so we can actually grow and have better relationships, better life overall. Because there are bad beliefs there within misogyny and patriarchy, within the matrix that we live in, that cause harm to us too. Everyone is being harmed by this crap. So no, like, I'm not gonna be okay with this. Neither should you.
Let them die. My question is, when do they lose the capacity for help? At what point? If you're 18 years old and a virgin, do you deserve help at that point? What if you're 20 years old? What if you try to ask someone out on a date, but you don't know how to socialize? Your social skills are developmentally stunted. Is that the point that you lose the capacity for help? When does someone cross the line to no longer deserving help and we should let them die?
Right. So again, he's minimizing or trying to focus on these specific things like your virginity or you're terrible at dating, so on and so forth. No, the real crux of the issue, which was referenced in the comedian's intro and in her joke, it's these thoughts, it's these beliefs that lead to these kind of behaviors, right? Beliefs, thoughts, actions. I believe this way about women. It impacts my thoughts and how I think about them. And so now I'm going to take an action. That's the issue. It's not, oh, I'm terrible at dating. I stutter. I'm a virgin. No. What? Like, we got to identify the actual bad stuff. And again, I think in this, he's just hopping over it, skipping over it, ignoring it, trying to make space. And I would say coddling men who actually have deeper issues that they need to address, which is our beliefs.
This is something that really worries me about like this whole dating and mating crisis and a lot of men being left behind, because there's one group of people that we say, hey, you don't deserve help. We're going to leave you behind. And I think that in and of itself, that reaction is what is breeding the incels. If you read these manifestos, look at these manifestos, these are people who were looking for one person to show them kindness. Oftentimes that's really what it is. It's a single human being to try to help them.
Like, I hear what he's saying. Again, trying to help somebody, sure, got it. Yeah, we need the help. But what are we helping with specifically? Right? What are we helping with specifically? Because there are a lot of resources online, tons of resources online, where people can work on their speech, where people can work on the way that they dress, people can work on their money, people can work on even romantic tips. They're not always good. But if your core beliefs about yourself, about women, about the way society should run, if that stuff isn't addressed, if that stuff isn't worked through, you can learn all the skills and tools, be in all the classes and all that stuff, get all the help you need. But if you're not changing that, you're still gonna be messed up. And I think we need to be honest about that.
And they don't get it. And then they get pushed to the end of, they get pushed, shunted to the side of society. They get ostracized. And then if society does...
Because I mean, hold on, let me go back. I think it's also important to know that the incel community, if we're looking at it historically, right, was open for men and women. It wasn't just men. It started turning into something different over time. And that's, yeah, that feeds into like the red pill rhetoric and all that kind of stuff. It's deeper than that. And I think if we don't try to get to the heart of it and really identify the actual issues, we're never going to have any progress.
The end of, they get pushed, shunted to the side of society. They get ostracized. And then if society doesn't give a fuck about you, what do you expect that person to do in relation to society? Are they going to be supportive to society? Are they going to be kind to society? Or are they going to have a reaction of like, hey, if y'all are going to screw me, like, fuck y'all, right? I
will say, you know, if you are questioning the reality behind why people are treating you this way, I think it's a good idea to, you know, effectively question that. Why are people treating me this way? Right? Because certain stuff, yeah, like you mentioned a little bit earlier, I think he mentioned about systemic issues. So yeah, like for me as a black man, when I go out in public, if I'm going places, I realize people are going to treat me different because of my skin color, because of my race. In some instances, people are going to treat me differently because of my sex, right? Or gender. Because I'm a man. And so they have reasons to come to those conclusions. Is it okay? No. You know, but it is what it is. It's a reality. And I think in this incident, or in this situation, when it comes to incels, we got to question, all right, what are the real roots behind why people are treating me this way? I still think it ultimately comes down to beliefs. If I'm holding on to beliefs that make people scared or afraid, maybe those are the things that I need to get rid of.
I think this is a huge problem. So the one thing that I really disagree with is if you're a man or a woman, I don't care. I don't think these people should be left behind. I think just like any other class of people who faces something, if we're talking about minorities in prison, we don't say that's their fault. We say this is a systemic issue that affects a lot of these people. We should do something as a society to help these people.
Ooh, okay, I might even make it through the rest of the video. My laptop's getting ready to die. Yeah, not comparing incels to minorities that are, okay, the only correlation I can see there is, yeah, it's a systemic issue, but you have to address the right systemic issue. In this situation, if you're saying the system is pushing incels back, you got to identify what the actual system is. Like, yeah, racism, classism, Yeah, all that stuff is there, and it does a terrible job across the board. And yes, it specifically and oftentimes harms minorities people. It harms black people. And if you're a black man watching this, it harms you, right? That is not, I think it's maybe disingenuous is the word I'm looking for, to conflate being an incel and being somebody that is villainized and criminalized for their skin, for the area that they grew up in. Again, if you're only going to be focusing on incels in the sense of lack of virginity and other stuff like that, you're not being honest. You're not being fully honest.
If we look at women who are victims of domestic violence, they're female-only homeless shelters. They're not male-only homeless shelters. I think that's totally fine because there's a subgroup of people who is predisposed to being victimized by another group of people. And for their safety, we as a society should step up and account for that, right? So when we look at other...
Okay, so he mentioned class a few times. And even just now, he's mentioning the difference between homeless shelters, specifically for women, and then, there are some missions or whatever, at least I know in the DMV area, there are some places dedicated to just men. But I understand what he's saying, right? And it's because those women are victims. They are marginalized. They are oppressed. I think it's unfair and a little wild to say that incels are oppressed. I think they are duped. I think they are manipulated and taken advantage of by our society and by the matrix that we live in, but they're not oppressed. They've just been sold a bill of goods, like a lot of us are, in various capacities. It could be capitalism sells us a bill of goods that's fake. Like there are so many IOUs that the matrix gives us and it sets us up. And again, to make this comparison of victims and people who are oppressed and people who are marginalized with individuals who have a really, really hard time, have a hard time with romantic relationships is not the same. That's wild. That's wild to me.
Classes of people who are struggling. If there's a class of people, it's a systems issue, not an individual issue. That's kind of, I don't know if that is like too self-evident or I need to explain that more, but does that kind of make sense? If there's a group of people who...
I see what you're trying to get at. It's just not, I don't think it's fully fleshed out. I don't think that's fair. Like, again, to me, the deeper issue that I'm seeing, that I've heard even from women, even from the comedian he's referencing here, it's a belief issue. It's thought issues that lead to bad actions that make people, women and men, not want to deal with these people. It's not even really a class issue. It's, my wife has described it like this. It's a heart issue. It's a heart and mind issue, and that needs to be addressed.
All behaves a particular way. That's a system issue, not an individual issue. And systems issues require systematic solutions. But our systematic response to this is leave them behind. And so if you're someone who's struggling with this, we are going to try to help you, right? I don't agree with that approach. I think that in the same way that we feel moralistic towards incels today, we used to feel moralistic towards criminals. We used to feel moralistic towards addicts. I think what we will discover, what we're already discovering, is that over the last decade, there's been a lot of research that shows that there is a developmental trajectory, their history of trauma and abuse for a lot of these people, that these people struggle in their lives, and that we should help them. That's the main thing that I disagree with. And here's how. So if you're someone who's in this situation, I think that unfortunately, society is not really there to help you. But that doesn't mean you're screwed, and that doesn't mean that you are destined to die out. Okay, so here's the big difference between Darwinian natural selection and humans. So if you're a finch on the Galapagos Islands and you lose access to your source of food, you as a finch can't really do much about that. But as a human being, you have cognition, you have some degree of free will, you have resources, you have therapists. There's a lot that you can actually do. So what should you do? There are two things that I would strongly recommend.
Before he gets into it, I agree with it. There are certain things that are out of our control. Right? Like if you're in an environment and you have no way to get food or resources, yes, that limits you. I think it's also important to identify, again, we're talking about systemic issues, that there are greater systems in place that make sure that people don't get those things. So again, if we're talking about marginalized people, if we're talking about women who have to deal with patriarchy and misogyny, if we have to talk about general citizens who have to deal with capitalism and elitism and all the crappy stuff, the crappy stuff that we have to deal with day to day, those are bigger things. And that's not necessarily, I guess, like you were saying, Darwinian natural selection. No, there's intentional effort being made to get rid of people, to mess things up from another group of people. Like, this isn't just like, this is a random wildfire happening. No, somebody set these trees ablaze. That's what's happening. And that includes crappy stuff happening to individuals, men and women. But since we're talking about incels here, yeah, something was put in place. Ideas were put in place to take advantage of men for generations. And at a period of time, it was beneficial to some degree. It was effective, right? Like, you sell that. That's why so many red pillars or people who want to go back to the 1950s or 1940s, who want to hold on to these ideas of masculinity and traditional values and stuff like that. They're trying to go back to a place where it seemed, where it appeared, where all this stuff was effective and suitable and it worked out, right? That's where we're trying to get back to what our grandparents had. We're trying to get back to what our older parents had or whatever, not actually taking into consideration that there was crappy stuff happening during that time too. And so we're holding on to this idea that was sold effectively to make a bigger impact worldwide and culturally. Stuff is changing, and the systems and the powers that be that influence those systems are continuing to harm people. And I think we're just at a place now where all that stuff is falling apart. But we have to be honest about it and actually address the specific things, the right things. We have to identify the right and proper problem, or we're just going to keep dealing with symptoms and not actually fixing things. And so I'm curious to hear what he has to say. But again, I think there's a big hop, jump, skip over the actual deeper issue.
Can't really do much about that. But as a human being, you have cognition, you have some degree of free will, you have resources, you have therapists. There's a lot that you can actually do. So what should you do? There are two things that I would strongly recommend. The first is that you be careful about the trash diet of the internet. The content that you consume, take a look at what impact that has on you. When you spend 1,000 hours on 4chan, when you spend time on incel forums, what does that do for you? 1 week that you spend on an incel forum, what does that do? What is your internal emotional state? How does your life change? Oftentimes what people find is that these are places that are incredibly validating, but they are not going to move you forward in life. They're not actually going to fix your problems. They're just going to soothe your problems. And there's something.
No, that's true. I agree. I mean, I think that's good advice. You need to check, that's what I'm trying to say here. We got to check our beliefs and check our thoughts. Because yeah, if we're consuming things that, even though they may, like he's saying, feel validating, that doesn't mean it's actually beneficial for us. Stuff that feels good, or comforting or coddling, doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually helping us to grow, especially when we have deeper issues that need to be addressed. So I get that. I don't disagree with that. You got to check what you're actually consuming.
Something very dangerous about these places is that they tell you it's not your fault, which feels really good. And to a certain degree, it may not be your fault. But they almost always also say there's nothing you can do about it, that we should blame these other people, right? There are certain things that you're not responsible for, but when I notice like the dialogue in these kind of incel-oriented forums and things like that, people are not like offering solutions to improve, right? They're just basically saying, you're screwed, I'm screwed. It's an echo chamber of people who have been screwed in life. And then the problem is that as we get developmentally better, those of us that break out of inceldom usually leave those places behind. So be really careful about your engagement in those spaces.
Again, I don't disagree with him here. I think, that can show up in a variety of different places. Yeah, you leave an area and you leave people behind. Because I think if you're not strong enough to help other people get out, then it becomes very difficult, There may be a process that you have to go through to like, okay, I've left inceldom, or I've left like these toxic places. Now I actually have to relearn things. I have to grow and become a different person so I can actually go back and comment or help other people. And that can be tricky, right? Like sometimes people ain't got it. Some people can't go back and help everybody. You try to be a helping hand and you get pulled back in, or the relationship ends up deteriorating, or something other chaotic happens. Like there's risk involved in that. The same could be said, since he wanted to mention minorities earlier, or, marginalized people earlier, there was risk in people in our ancestors, the descendants of enslaved people. There was risk with those who escaped slavery to come back and help others. Not everybody did that. That doesn't mean some people shouldn't try or some people didn't. Obviously that happened. Shout out to, ancestor Harriet Tubman. Freed so many people, right? So many of our ancestors. But she was built like that. You know what I'm saying? Like she that was part of her call or her destiny, whatever you want to call it. Like, but not everybody did that. And maybe that's part of what he's doing, right? What Dr. K is doing. Maybe that's part of what I need to do, trying to help. But again, we have to identify what are the real things that people need to escape, right? Sometimes we can escape a situation and don't even know how we actually got out, right? Like, it's this serendipitous thing. It's like, oh, I just got out. My environment changed, something happened, whatever. Some people just get freed and they don't even do the self-reflection or the internal work to really analyze and critique what steps happened. What did I need to let go of? What do I need to maneuver and change so that I could be set free? But that's important work. So I don't disagree with him. But yeah, that is a reality that work has to be done when people leave to actually change and be equipped to go back and help other people. And yeah, as men, we should do that. We should do that work. We should be leaving these toxic beliefs behind, these toxic communities behind, getting the help that we need, going through therapy, doing the emotional development, all the stuff, and then being able to go back and help others however we can. But the reality is not everybody is going to be able to do that. But we got to commit to growing, commit to changing, and also identifying what the real issue is, which is, yeah, there are some really bad systems in place, but also there are some really bad systems in place, and there are really bad beliefs in propaganda and things that we need to really dismantle as well.
The second thing that I strongly, strongly recommend is y'all check out a course that we have called Mind the Fundamentals. So this is something where, like, I don't know how else to say this, but if you want to conquer this problem, the main thing that you need to understand is that your mind is working against you, that you have problems with your ego, you have problems with your desire. It's not that the world...
All right, maybe I can look into this course. I don't know. That sounds interesting. I'm going to speed it up since we're at the end, and this is kind of like advertisement. But it's true. I agree. Like, our mind definitely works against us. And there's a lot there. And I think, again, like, we have to be honest and be clear on what those things are in the mind that is messing with us. And a lot of it is really, really poor beliefs that are harmful to us and to others.
World is this way, because this is the other thing that you have to understand. What adapt or die means is that the circumstances that you live in are the same, but there are some people who are able to break out of it, right? Some people who are able to heal, some people who are able to socialize, some people who develop social skills. And the second thing is to understand how you work, because the truth of the matter is that COVID changed a lot about the way that we relate to other human beings. The post-COVID world is socially so different. And some people, by virtue of the way that they were raised, or some amount of work, or some amount of self-reflection, they are able to adapt to a post-COVID world. And some of us haven't figured out how to do that. And this is where, for me, this was revolutionary. So the moment that turned my life around is when I went to India. So I was like failing out of college, struggled to date, like asked out a bunch of girls, like joined a fraternity, would get drunk and ask out girls, and like it really didn't work out. Went on a series of terrible dates, had I don't even know if you could call them relationships. I was just like an absolute complete loser. What turned things around for me is going to India. What turned things around for me is recognizing how I work as a person. What is my ego? Where do desires come from? What are the influences on my mind that shape my behaviors? I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's just. I'm not saying any of that stuff. What I'm saying is that if you are trying to get started on this, the strongest place that I would recommend that you start is something that we call Mind the Fundamentals. So we've summarized the most important principles, collected them into a course, but you can absolutely just watch stuff on our channel. And here's the crazy thing, is that it works. You can work on yourself, is improving and setting boundaries, is learning to balance activity with periods of rest, has built resilience through pain, suffering, and failure, knows if difficulty comes, he will do his best to go through it and grow from it, is now able to form and maintain deep relationships with a selected few, is getting better at listening to and protecting their inner child, is learning the value of silence and nonverbal communication, knows life will always have its ups and downs, is starting to believe he's enough as he is, hasn't got everything figured out, but is okay with it. These are the skills that we try to teach in our community, and we are not going to leave you behind. The challenges that we face today, the existing institutions that we have are not able to help us. Right? Therapy seems insufficient because there's a certain amount of social rehabilitation which needs to happen. But who's taking responsibility for that? So I think that while I sort of agree with Eliza Schlesinger, and like I made a video about how I think...
I will say before he wraps up here, I think who takes responsibility for that? It's, it's two parties, right? Like those who are incels have to take responsibility too. But again, it also is important to recognize what are the real issues. Like, I think it sucks and it's hurtful to be able to like, my real issues are, generally speaking, my real issues are, I don't have a lot of money, I'm not necessarily attractive, and maybe I'm boring, and I'm socially awkward. Sure, again, those things are pretty surface, and those things can be worked on, right? But again, we have to, if you're claiming to be an incel, you need to be careful to identify and recognize what is part of that. What are the deeper beliefs and ideas that are connected to that? That could be screwing up all the rest of the stuff. Because yeah, you can work on having more money. You can get a better job. You can work on your socialization skills. You can work on being more interesting. You can work on all this stuff. But if you have misogynistic thoughts and beliefs that are still motivating how you treat others, how you treat women, that's going to screw you up altogether. Because, you know, a lot of red pill and incels idols, people that we look at online, Kevin Samuels, Fresh and Fit, whoever you want to plug into there, they appear to have all the other things, right? They dress a certain way. They seem to have decent social cues, maybe. They have money. So they have these things, you know, include Andrew Tate. It seems like they have these things. But at the core behind all of these different content creators, all of these men who create and share this information, is a belief that is harmful to themselves and to others, and more specifically towards women, which screws them up and which ultimately screws you over if you're trying to adopt all the things that they're saying. So yeah, again, maybe this course is very helpful. I've seen his content. I've watched a few of his videos, and I think there is some helpful stuff there. But from what I'm learning is we got to get to the heart and the real core of a lot of the issues. And I think the way that we actually get there is we need to listen to those who we are trying to be in relationship with. Because there are a lot of women who have already been communicating and telling us what are the issues. And sure, yeah, you might not have enough money. Okay, again, you can go fix that. Maybe you are boring. You're not good at having a conversation. Okay, cool. You can work on that. You can fix that. Maybe you need to get in shape, so on and so forth. But as you keep digging deeper and getting into the layers of thing, the most toxic thing that needs to be fixed is our belief in how we see ourselves and how we see women. And that's what goes all the way back to the initial joke that the comedian made, right? She made reference to men who unalived others and had these manifestos and had these ideas that were harmful, that literally led to poor actions, led to things that were not beneficial. So like, we got to work on that stuff, uproot that stuff, and then deal with the other things.
Ability for that. So I think that while I sort of agree with Eliza Schlesinger, and like I made a video about how I think this is natural selection, I think it's not hopeless, and I don't think you deserve to be left behind.
Well, that was the video. Again, I disagreed, and with a variety of different things. But again, I think at the heart of it, though, I think there is hope, but there's only hope if you can identify what are the actual things that need to be addressed, right? And to me, like I've been saying often on this channel, is we have, and I agree with him, like fundamentally our minds are messed up. Our society and the matrix around us has screwed us over by feeding us a variety of different poor beliefs that cause harm to everyone. But more specifically, those who are most vulnerable and marginalized in our community, women and children. And so we have to continue to check our beliefs, check our thoughts, so that we can actually develop and have beneficial acts, so that we can have and live a beneficial life. So we have to constantly keep checking our mental, find time for an emotional release valve while we're processing and dealing with stuff, and do the work to become beneficial for the whole. Sure, it starts with ourselves, but then those in our community as well. But thanks for checking out the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.